Hey guys, I thought I'd do a quick slide tutorial for you to just give you some basics here. Okay, so number one, you got to wear the slide on your third or fourth finger. I know. What about Jeff Beck? Jeff mainly is playing single note lines. If you want to be able to do lots of chordal stuff and fretting behind the glass, third and fourth is the only way to go. We also have to mute behind the glass. We'll talk about that in a minute. The right hand, you have to mute strings too. Now, I would recommend you try to play with your fingers or with finger picks. If you were to use the pick, the problem is when we're playing normal lead guitar, the heel of my hand and the underside of my index finger is doing 90% of the muting around the string you're playing. The problem when you play slide is essentially the slide is almost all the time hitting all the strings, so it's like you're barring. So the problem is if I were to just use my pick, I'm having to do stuff like that to try to get around, and it's not as efficient. So if I wanted pure single note lines, it's a lot more work. If I have multiple fingers to do this with, it becomes a lot easier. So that's why a lot of great players don't just use a flat pick. They might use a thumb pick and finger picks or just their fingers. And I personally like the fingers approach. And there's lots of ways to mute. And I use different things for different kind of things. So if I needed to do an opposable kind of thing, I'll have this kind of combination, and my palm will come in to hit more of the strings. So if I'm doing, then I'll move over for that. Or if I need the tonality of the thumb, I'll move that around. A lot of times, though, I like using more of the fingers to be more efficient, and I also get a brighter tone. So a lot of times my home base is my thumb is here, because it allows me to mute what I need. So if I were doing, so the concept there is that as I'm changing from string to string, the finger that picked the string has to stop that same string as it leaves it. Like that. Otherwise you get that. And if we didn't do anything, everything just goes nuts. Okay, so you have different ways of doing that. There's also techniques like Derek Trucks does this a lot, where you might use the thumb side of your hand and mute like this, and maybe use the pinky and rake into the string. That's a cool technique for So I'll use that for different things like that. Really, it's an anything goes kind of approach. I'm kind of using the Sonny Landreth sort of approach a lot of times, so a little more technical. Anyway, the left hand, what's the purpose behind the slide? Well, a slide has harmonics, overtones behind the glass, and fundamental, fretted notes, let's say, in front of the glass. So if you were to fret like your 7th fret, you'd hear, if you did the harmonic. So with a slide on this side, you have the notes. Now you can hear everything stops. If I take these off, check out what happens. So that's muting harmonic overtones. So that's why you'll never see a credible slide player playing here, and that's why this limits you a lot. Now, if you go with your third or fourth finger for the slide, you can get behind the glass. Okay, so what does that allow you to do? Well, it allows you to create more chords. So I'm in open E tuning right now, which is a major chord. But what if I need a minor chord? Well, here's the third, here's the flat third of the chord. So I could be going, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Sonny Landreth does that a lot. And you can also play with that harmonics behind the glass thing. So I could use that to get almost like accordion or B3 or maybe harmonica kind of sounds. You could even pick behind the glass. And if you slap the harmonic, 12 frets higher, I could move the harmonic because the glass will allow me to sustain the note. And you can do that with single notes. If you want to do alien spaceship noises. So it's pretty cool. Now, of course, the left hand, I've got to have my pitch accuracy. So it's good to maybe at first do this in standard tuning because you know your scale notes and everything. And also a good thing is that in open tunings, a lot of the adjacent notes, if you goofed up the tuning, in many cases are complementary. In standard tuning, most of them aren't, so it keeps you honest about your muting and stuff. So I think standard is a good place to start. But then you could do something funny, kind of like the Mexican hat dance in open E tuning. It helps you deal with a lot of cross string muting and pitch accuracy of half steps and whole steps. So if we did, now if I didn't mute, you'd get, so then we've got, so you can practice slow going, and I'm looking for the fret to be dead center on the slide there, and I don't want it like this, because if I play chords, you're going to be out of tune, okay? And use your ear and everything, but if the guitar is intonated right, you could use that as a reference point. You could maybe even draw a Sharpie line down there, and you just practice, and then you go faster, and then you get that slide thing where you have this, you're not trying to be stiff, but you have to robotically like go fast and stop on a dime. Now when you go across diagonally, you can't do that with a slide. So you get what I call the slide yips. So you're going as fast as you can, and that's what creates the cool, which is cool, Saying that once you have it, you can play around with sliding into the pitch like a vocalist would. So a lot of times you can just try to sing that stuff. All sorts of fun stuff like that, okay? You can also play around with, because the slide will sustain things, just leaving the slide in place and moving it, the notes start to come out. So I could play a note like, or I could go, you could even do a thing called a slide tilt, where the slide is kind of on the edge here, and you mute the other stuff, except for maybe a couple of the low notes. Okay, I'm getting used to the guitar. It takes a little bit to get used to a particular guitar. This isn't my guitar, it's just one I grabbed off the wall of the store here. But part of what you have to do with the slide, if the fingerboard's not, if the strings aren't flat, which they're not going to be on most electric guitars, you have to adjust slightly to the radius, because what will happen is it'll kind of fall off the ledge of the string. So if I were to go and then hit a bass string, see, so I've got to adjust this. Okay, what can help that is raising the action, heavier strings. If you've got a guitar like a Strat or Tele, you could flatten out the fingerboard, the string radius, which would allow you to have more ability to get all the 6 strings to work if you're doing a 6-string chordal thing. It also means I could push into the strings ever so slightly to get a little more grip on the string, which means I can hit them more aggressively without the string bouncing off the underside of the slide. Anyway, these are just some ideas to help you guys. Let me know what you think.